Hi, this is Rich Scheidner. And if you've ever wondered what it was like to be a stand-up comedian in the 1980s, I'm going to do you a big favor. Instead of billions of dollars for a time machine, you can just spend $24.95 and buy my new book, Kicking Through the Ashes, My Life as a Stand-Up in the 1980s Comedy Boom. It will save you money and give you thrills. It will take you there. Go to my website, richscheidner.com, go to amazon.com, and buy this book.
So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Ambleman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, broadcast and recorded live on blogtalkradio.com from the new media and baseball capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. There are only two places that I will sing out loud. Number one, if I'm alone, and number two, if I'm driving somewhere with my daughter. I've been singing out loud to her since the first day I drove her alone in the car when she was, days old. And AC/DC's, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, came on the radio. I can't say I'm proud of this. Nonetheless, it happened. Last year, we even started singing one song together. It was Bruce Springsteen's Radio Nowhere. And God bless her, she doesn't judge me. Or if she does, I'm blissfully unaware of it. So I'm not the likeliest guy to host a show featuring a guy whose life was changed by karaoke. I can guarantee you that will never, ever happen to me. But I have a good sense of fun and the ridiculous, so I invited Brian Raftery, author of Don't Stop Believin', How Karaoke Conquered the World and Changed My Life, to join me on Mr. Media tonight. And I'm really counting on my audience to step up. Because in addition to talking to Brian about his book, I'm inviting listeners, that's right, you, and especially you over there, to call in and sing to us. You can sing along to your iPod, your Zune, the radio, whatever. I just don't want to hear your accompaniment. We don't want to violate any copyright laws here. But if you call up and you can hear it in your ear and you want to sing along, that would be great. All right, just you, okay? All right, now, Brian, welcome to Mr. Media.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you here. It seems like we've done this all before, but that's just my imagination. Hey, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
I don't want to waste too much time here with you, so I want to say that I want you to share immediately with everyone listening why you think Don Henley of the Eagles is a dirtbag and why this has anything to do with karaoke.
I don't personally have anything against Don Henley. I've never met the man, and he and I have never been in the same social situation. But, one of the things people don't realize about karaoke, I think a lot of people just assume that, the record companies take these songs and just take the vocals out and sell the backing tracks to, karaoke bars, which isn't what happens. There's actually a lot of permissions that have to go through, and the songwriters have to sign off, and then they get another band to re-record them. And Don Henley and the Eagles famously do not allow their music to be used for films or for video games or for TV shows. And they don't allow it to be used for karaoke. And because the Eagles are so popular, Don Henley has kind of gotten this reputation in the karaoke community, which is small but very vocal, as someone who is trying to stop people from using Eagles songs at karaoke. So what happens is because Don Henley or the Eagles have sort of blocked legal versions of karaoke songs, there's a whole black market of bootleg Eagles karaoke songs circulating around the country. So if you have sung an Eagles song at karaoke, you may have unknowingly been, supporting some sort of a karaoke-based terrorist regime. Maybe not, but that could be the case.
Well, now you kind of back off a little bit there, but I get this strong feeling, within pages of reading the book that you have some pretty strong anti-Don Henley feelings.
Well, I think, I've been working on this book for a couple of years now, and I've been a karaoke fan for 10 years. And over that time, I've seen karaoke's perception really change from something that was kind of a joke and looked down upon to becoming this really big part of American culture and international culture. And so when I hear about artists, like the Eagles and Don Henley not letting people sing their songs at karaoke, I start thinking, well, that's not very cool. I mean, these are your fans who, want to share in this music with you. And it also doesn't help that Henley has a little bit of a kind of jerky attitude, and he used to wear bolo ties. So those factors combined have made me, I do sort of, I do have some, I do sort of growl whenever I see him, but I do like The Boys of Summer and All She Wants to Do Is Dance. So that forgives many of his sins. And the opening of the book does take Don Henley on in a very tough way, but I have made peace in some ways with the lack of karaoke support from him. So and maybe he'll reach out at some point, and if he ever wants to try karaoke, there's an open invitation for him to come out with me one night.
So you really want him to come out, or you want him to come out?
I want him to come out and sing. I mean, I want him to come out as a closeted karaoke enthusiast, which I doubt he is. But if he ever wants to sort of get a sense of what it's like at a karaoke bar, because I'm sure he has a lot of negative perceptions, I would be happy to take him out for a night in New York, and he could see what it's really like. And hopefully he wouldn't mind that all the bars in New York have Eagles songs that he probably is not making any money off of.
So you think you could maybe just convince him with the argument that, hey, let me at least show you that you're losing money on this because people are doing it without you anyway.
Well, I think he does have a sense of humor because in the late 80s or early 90s, Mojo Nixon wrote this song called Don Henley Must Die, which was like this kind of tongue-in-cheek rockabilly song. But I know Don Henley at one point got on stage and sang it with him. So, he does have some sense of humor, kind of, buried beneath all that sort of somber Walden Pond, thoughtfulness that he tries to put out there. But I don't know. I'd be curious to see. To actually sing a Eagles song with Don Henley at karaoke would be pretty amazing. Granted, if he would actually want to do that. But I would certainly, as long as he let me pick the song. So that'd be pretty cool.
Now, so does that go for all the Eagles songs, or just the ones that Don Henley wrote?
Well, that's where it gets muddy. I mean, it basically, karaoke songs, the permission goes to the songwriter. The songwriter has to sign off on whether, karaoke companies can record or produce these versions of the songs. And I think, the Eagles have this, sort of blanket policy about not licensing anything. But I know Henley, you can't get any Henley songs at karaoke, in an authorized. However, you can get Glenn Frey's solo songs. So that leads me to believe that possibly Henley is the anti-karaoke faction in the group. And again, this is so strange, but every time I would interview people in the karaoke industry, somehow, without me prompting it, Don Henley would come up as this example of an artist who just drives them crazy. So for whatever reason, he has made some enemies in the karaoke community.
Wow. Well, and what about Joe Walsh? Is he the same way?
I think he's pretty cool with it. The only problem with Joe Walsh is that the best ever Joe Walsh karaoke song would be In the City, which is like one of the songs I would love to sing. It's like a really great potential karaoke song, and I can't find it anywhere. So I think he's probably cool with it. However, I'm not sure whether the karaoke companies have gone too deep in the Joe Walsh catalog. So I don't know if Joe Walsh were to come out for karaoke for a night, and which would be cool because hopefully he would bring his talk box. I don't know how many Joe Walsh songs he'd actually be able to find. But if he could do In the City, I mean, that's one of his best songs ever. I would love to sing that at karaoke.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
Now, he's not the only artist whose songs are not available for karaoke, right?
No, luckily a lot of artists have kind of loosened up. But I interviewed some people who worked in the industry in the early '80s when karaoke was just getting introduced in America, and they had for years they had holdouts like Billy Joel and Springsteen and Paul Simon, and there's still, you still hear once in a while. I would hear Peter Gabriel saying no. I would hear, I think Paul Simon might actually still say no. But I've seen a lot of these artists now at karaoke, and I've seen a lot of these artists, using legitimate karaoke companies. So I know that a lot of them have changed their view. I think, at this point, the way the music industry is going, if you can get, a couple of pennies off a karaoke disc, that's better than getting 0% of the MP3s that are being shot around. So it's another form of income. But I would also think that a lot of artists have just kind of realized, what, I wrote a hit song, I wrote a couple of hit songs. If people want to sing it at karaoke, so be it. And I mean, for someone like Billy Joel, who's got about 35,000 songs available at karaoke, he's if all those songs are being cleared legally, it's, he's probably doing pretty well just off that. I mean, you cannot go into a karaoke bar anywhere in the world and not hear, Piano Man or Seamstress Italian Restaurant at least, once or twice in an evening.
Brian, you still there?
Yep.
Okay. I'm having a little trouble with sound tonight, so I thought I lost you.
No, I'm a little bit of a flutter on my end, but I'm still here.
Okay. Okay. So it's not my imagination.
No.
Okay. Good. Well, let me give out our phone number. If you've got a question for Brian Raftery, am I saying that right?
Yeah, this is Raftery. It's a sort of a strange Irish variant, so I never mind when it gets mispronounced, but you got it right.
Okay. So if you've got a question for Brian Raftery, author of Don't Stop Believing, How Karaoke Conquered the World and Changed My Life, give us a call, 646-595-3135. And in case you missed the invitation at the beginning of the show, I want you to call in and sing, okay? Let me just repeat the instructions. I'm really counting on you to step up and sing tonight. Because in addition to talking to Brian, I want you to sing along to your iPod, your Zune, the radio, whatever. I just don't want to hear your accompaniment, okay? Meaning we don't want to violate any copyright laws here. So you can hear it in your ear, and you sing along with whatever you hear. So, Brian, I think we've got our first victim. Caller.
Okay.
Let's go to the phones. Hi, do you have a comment or question for Brian? Or a song?
Hi. This is Beth, and I have a question. I'm wondering what Brian thinks of the difficulty that some bars and stuff have getting to be able to play karaoke with ASCAP coming and breathing down their neck for licensing.
There's actually, I think there's actually some karaoke cops now. I've heard of one in New York who goes to like local karaoke bars, and there's actually been a couple shut down here. Again, a lot of people don't realize that, these karaoke tracks have to be cleared either by the publisher at one end, and then there's also, as a caller mentioned, ASCAP and a lot of the publishing companies monitor bars and clubs and make sure they're paying a sort of, I think it's a yearly fee to play this music. So there were rather in New York a couple of years ago, a lot of crackdowns on bars and clubs that weren't getting their karaoke rights cleared, but it seems like nowadays everyone's kind of realized that if you want to keep in business, you've got to pay the bills. So I haven't heard of a lot of crackdowns outside of New York lately, though I know they do have a lot of people going out to bars and actively checking, which means there are people out there whose jobs consist of waking up in the afternoon and going to karaoke bars all night in their city, which sounds kind of intriguing and also terrifying at the same time.
Well, my local bar was hit. Actually, we think somebody did they were mad at the bar owner maybe, and they called up, and the guy walked in from ASCAP and said, well, this bar doesn't look like what I expected it to be. And then they said, oh, here, by the way, you have to pay $450 in order to be able to play karaoke in your bar. And this is a bar that's in a, kind of a low-rent neighborhood, and $450 is a lot of money for them.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people don't even realize that these ASCAP rules for bars to play money, like a yearly fee. So I'm guessing a lot of karaoke bar owners are kind of wising up now that all these places are getting busted. But it does seem a little ridiculous to sort of go after these bars that have karaoke once a week or something, and try to get this yearly fee. But again, the way the music industry is now, they're trying to squeeze as much money as they can out of everything.
I would think that they would want the music out there because isn't what's that phrase about replicating or trying to say something about the flattery. I've lost track.
That's okay.
What I'm trying to say? It's like people are out there singing their songs, and you think people go, oh, I love that song. I'm going to go buy their CD. So why would they go after people and make them pay a goofy little fee to pay something that's already been the disc itself has paid a licensing fee already? So why ding somebody else for that same disc?
Well, that's the thing. That's kind of I've been covering the music industry for the last couple of years, and that's been the argument is that why are if people want to hear this music, why sort of inject these fees and make these barriers? But I think this has just been a really confusing decade for the music industry, and they've seen all of their sort of regular revenue streams get completely decimated. So I think nowadays they're just looking for any way to collect money, and there is that counter argument that, when you go after people who are fans or you go after bars that are playing music, whether it's karaoke, that what you're doing is kind of like, you're sort of preventing people from hearing more music. And, their argument is that, well, we need to get these artists paid and we need to get the record companies paid. So it's one of those debates that's, I don't think they're ever going to resolve it in any way. And it's, it's a shame that there has to be this much back and forth because, I think most people who go to karaoke bars don't really even want to think about the politics of, publishing rights. They just want to sort of get up and sing a Meatloaf song without wondering whether, they're legally allowed to or not,
Well, along that way, Brian, I can tell you that Beth sent me a note in the live web chat just before the show started describing herself as a karaoke junkie. So I think you're in very good company here.
That is true. Brian, what's your favorite karaoke music to sing?
Well, I mean, as a genre or as a song? Or a certain song?
Genre, song, whatever.
I sort of go over the place. I kind of go through phases, and it's, I started going in these New York bars in the late 90s when I first moved to the city, and the selection was kind of limited. So we would wind up doing a lot of 80s songs. I mean, they basically had some 70s soft rock songs. They had a couple of show tunes and standards, which I didn't really know or really go for, and they had a lot of 80s stuff. So there were a lot of nights where we would inevitably wind up doing, Love is a Battlefield or, Betty Davis Eyes multiple times. But, my all-time favorite karaoke song has always been this song called Sister Christian by Night Ranger. For a couple of reasons. One is that I think, some of the best karaoke songs to sing are the ones that were never number one hits, but were kind of like number 5 or number 6. So people aren't, they're not so ubiquitous that people have gotten kind of tired of them. And also Sister Christian, for those who haven't heard it, is kind of like this metal power ballad, though it's not really that metal, that just rises to this really big anthemic fist-pumping chorus, which everyone likes to sing along with, which I think makes it fun. And then, finally there's a sort of a nostalgic attachment I have to it, not when I heard the song as a kid, but when I heard it for years, doing karaoke 10 years ago. So that's always been my favorite song. But now, I sing just about anything. I'm not very good at hip-hop, even though I really try. I just can't get the flow right. But everything else, I'm open to pretty much anything at this point. And the best thing about, the karaoke bars in New York is that there's so many of them now that they're kind of competing for song lists, which means they just keep adding, pages upon pages of songs every couple of months, which is great for me. What are some of your favorites?
I cross all genres. I don't like hip-hop either. I'm partial to... I like to do. I've got an inner rocker chick, an inner pop chick, an inner country chick.
Yeah.
I do a little Pat Benatar, Shania Twain, Patsy Cline. I just go everywhere. I've been doing karaoke probably for about 15, 20 years on and off. There used to be this great karaoke bar across the street from my house, which is now kind of like fallen by the wayside, and the new owners kind of like ran it into the ground. But, I still go over once in a while, or I go up the hill from my house. I've got a bunch of places about 5 minutes from my house. So, I just like to go out and sing. I grew up singing, along to commercials on TV. That's where I got my singing ability from. So I love karaoke. And by the way, if I was single and you were in my neighborhood, I would karaoke date you. So.
That sounds intensely personal. Is that something we can talk about, or I don't know what that means exactly.
You sound like my kind of guy. You like to go out and karaoke. You don't care what kind of music you sing. It's like those are the fun people to go karaoke with, and I love to do kamikaze karaoke.
What's kamikaze? Is that when you? What is that?
It's like suicide. You go up and either you just kind of go in the book and you put your finger down, or What song have you ever done that? That's like wow. Yeah.
I've heard it called blind date karaoke, and I've heard it called a couple of things. Those are really fun. I mean, they're kind of terrifying, but.
It's scary, but it's fun.
Yeah, I think I had a friend do that once, and I think he got like Hava Nagila or something. He got something really that hadn't been picked in years, and was just. I think he was in like a country bar, but he sang it. I have no idea how that worked out, but it's funny. It's funny. Like a lot of people, it's weird. There are so many karaoke bars in all these major cities and small cities that it really. And in a place like New York where we have these arcane, bizarre cabaret laws where a lot of dance clubs you can't dance anymore, there have been a lot of like karaoke romances, especially kind of like in the like for young people going out on a Friday or Saturday night, if they're going out with coworkers and they get a room with like 12 people, it's kind of a way where they can kind of flirt without flirting. You pick a song, you're kind of singing it to the person and kind of winking while doing it, but at the same time, if it doesn't go over well, you can always just sort of just pass it off as doing karaoke. So I've certainly had my share of relationships go up and down in karaoke rooms in the last couple of years, and my wife and I now do karaoke all the time, and it is kind of like a way of keep flirting. I think it's actually really fun. So.
I was born a flirt, so it's so bad, no problem.
Beth, can I ask geographically, where are you?
I'm in the Seattle area, so I'm on the West Coast.
You guys couldn't be any further apart and still be in the country, I'm afraid.
I know. I've even discovered online singing. Have you ever done any online singing, Brian?
I haven't. One of the things about writing the book and about doing karaoke is that I'm actually not a good singer at all, and that's kind of been one of the reasons why I love it so much. So the online singing always kind of terrified me because I always liked the fact that when I was going out with my friends and I couldn't sing, that they wouldn't, they're not going to judge me in any way for the most part. But the online singing, I know you get, I've interviewed people who've done it, and I've kind of watched the sites grow over the last couple of years because they're really, like MySpace karaoke is huge now.
I do that there too.
You do that? Yeah. The whole idea though of being rated and ranked kind of terrifies me.
Well, SingSnap is really good because there really isn't any rankings per se. People will leave you comments on your comment page, and I think I get more interaction on SingSnap than I do in MySpace karaoke. It's like MySpace, I just do it just for the heck of it.
Yeah. People love it. The idea now that. One of the things I love about the internet is that it's this sort of this meritocracy where, the people have been discovered because of their karaoke stuff, their online karaoke sort of not auditions, but their demos, as it were. And the guy who's singing, the lead singer of the new version of Boston, who replaced Brad Delp, I think, he was discovered because he had a bunch of karaoke. He used a bunch of karaoke tracks to put his songs online. Which is really amazing to think. 10 years ago, I can't imagine, any manager of a major band saying, maybe we should listen to these karaoke tracks and see if someone can do this. But, now that the technology's good and there are enough good singers out there that it can kind of rise up thanks to people voting it up or putting comments on it, which is great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a girl that likes to go out and sing. I consider myself pretty mediocre. I've had people tell me I'm great. I go, you know what? I just do this for fun. Because if you take yourself too personally, you take yourself too seriously, it gets out of hand, and then people hate you.
Well, I think the most fun karaoke, co-singers or singing partners are, just people who are actually really sincere about their love of the song. I generally like. I think people who take it so seriously that they kind of want everyone to sort of hush up and watch them sing, that's not so much fun. At the same time, I don't like people who kind of are very ironic and kind of make fun of it while they're doing it and kind of like wink and think it's beneath them. I like people who get up and I watch them and I go, wow, no matter how well that person sings, that person loves that song, and that person had that song bottled up in them for, who knows, hours, weeks, years, and could not wait to sing it. And that's when it's really fun, because that kind of, untempered enthusiasm is kind of hard to find a lot of times nowadays. And to see people doing it without a care for how they sound or what they, how they're coming off is really wonderful.
Yeah, I've actually had fun. I've actually hosted karaoke on occasion, too, at my little karaoke bar across the street. And
oh, wow.
That's more fun. You get people to say, oh, I can't sing, I suck, and they get up there and they open up their mouth, and you're like, are you kidding me? You can too sing, and they don't hear themselves, but when other people hear them, they're like they just totally blow your mind.
Yeah. That will never happen for me.
People I love.
Yeah, I've been lucky now that I've like got 10 years now of bad singing under my belt. And a couple of weeks ago, my wife was saying, you're not really that bad of a singer. You always make fun of yourself. And then we went out, and I wound up singing Africa by Toto in front of like 20 people, and it was by far the worst. And I've done that song a lot. I love that song. But the older I get, and I have asthma now, it's like that just sounded terrible. And I was like, boy, this was fun when it was like in a private room with 3 friends, but with all these people here, boy, and they were all very cool. But man, I'm not the kind of person who's like a surprisingly great singer. So but I do love when someone I know, whether it's a coworker or a friend, comes out for the first time and can really sing, or at least gets really into it.
Didn't The Simpsons do a whole episode based on that song?
Oh, they may have. Boy, that'd be. You know, I kind of dropped off after season 8 or 9, but that's. I'm one of those diehards that felt like it kind of lost its way after a while. But boy, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, Toto songs should be weaved through pop culture more often than they are now. I think between that and Rosanna, which is also a great karaoke song.
I'm thinking that there's a whole plot line around the line. I miss the rains down in Africa. I can't remember. That's all I remember. But I remember that had something to do with it. Beth, I'm hoping you might be thinking about honoring us with a song since we've.
Oh well, hey, if I had some karaoke music in front of me, that would be great. I don't have a karaoke player. I don't have a karaoke player at home, believe it or not, which is crazy. I should have one. If I had a bigger computer, I could put you guys up on one side of the screen and Sing Snap on the other, but I don't know if I can pull that off. I mean, I could probably try to hum a few bars or something, but I don't know if I can give you a whole song without backup.
If you want to go a cappella and give us a couple of bars or something, I think we'd love to hear it.
I will. You guys keep talking, and I'll think of a song, and I'll see if I can pull that off. Either that, or else if I can pull up. I see if I can pull up Sing Snap, and at the same time you guys are on. I'm working off of a little small laptop here.
Well, fair enough. Because karaoke singers, especially a lot of times when the evening starts, you always need a few minutes to kind of to sort of pick out your song and strategize. So that makes sense to sort of get a feel of the room, even though it's over the air, as it were.
Yeah. How important to either of you is alcohol in this process?
Well, for me, it was. I started in karaoke when I was like 23 and just moved to New York, and so alcohol was part of the weekend life anyway. So I'm not really sure whether I could really even divorce it. But it's certainly, there have been times where it has come in very handy for incredibly intimidating situations. But there's also a couple of years ago, a friend of mine, we decided to see how long we could go while doing karaoke sober. We did a whole night actually, which was good to know that I could do it. But at the same time, it's inevitably more fun when it's fun when you feel very confident, and sometimes it takes a little bit of booze to get that confidence. But at the same time, I know a lot of people who will get up and sing without anything whatsoever. They just don't need it at all. But I've generally karaoke is always in bars, and I enjoy being in bars whether they have karaoke or not. So it's always been kind of part of the fun for me.
Yep. And what about you, Beth?
I think alcohol helps when I'm going to try something I've never done. It loosens me up a little bit, lets a little inhibitions out a little bit. One of the hardest songs I ever took on, which I now do fine, is Mariah Carey's Hero.
Oh, that's a hard one.
And it's hard. And there's one where I also do a Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On. And so I always have tried those. I always tried to learn those songs when there were very few people in the bar, and there were people in the bar that I knew really well and that they wouldn't make fun of me.
Right.
So, the original owners of this bar actually used to run a karaoke business. So they worked really hard with me to get, the pitch right and the timing right and all that. So, I find myself, if I get too drunk, I can't say the words anymore, and so then I'm not very effective anymore.
Yeah.
Then I got people laughing at me. So.
Yeah, and but there's also sometimes you do as a drink if you are at a karaoke bar for a prolonged period of time, because sometimes even if you're not singing, a especially long karaoke bar night can require some alcohol for other reasons, mostly to sort of to get through it. Because everyone who's gone to karaoke bar has had good nights and bad nights just as an observer, and I think there's a reason why it's almost always paired with alcohol in America at least, and in Japan too. They make sure you have lots of alcohol with you when you do it in Japan. It's pretty much a nonstop delivery system of alcohol there.
Brian, why do people like to get up and sing in front of perfect strangers? What have you figured out about that?
I think it's a lot of reasons. I think I think there's been a couple of cultural changes with that. I think if you think about it, they really didn't for a long time. Karaoke was big almost everywhere else before it really got big in America. When it came out in the early 80s here, bar owners really had to hustle to get people to do so. And I think Americans, for as as showy as we can be, and for being kind of exhibitionists in a way. I think there was a sort of a stigma. I sort of write in the book, and this is a little bit of a joke, but it's really true. I mean, I really think that you can trace karaoke's popularity and people's ability to get in front of sing using Bill Murray's career, because when Bill Murray started out on Saturday Night Live, he did these Nick the Lounge Singer bits, which were great. And though they weren't karaoke, I think people, when they thought of going to a karaoke bar and singing in front of a small bar in front of people, they thought of Nick the Lounge Singer. They thought of Lounge Lizards. And I think it took a couple of years for people to get used to the idea. And then, by the late 90s, you had all these, 13, 14-year-old kids who were, they had this teen pop boom. So what you saw were kids basically being raised with the idea that singing is no big deal. It's something you do with your friends. It's a very social thing. So I think that has really kind of helped cement the idea that, okay, I can sing in front of people. I want to do this. It's not a big deal. And you sort of saw it again toward the very end of Bill Murray when he sang in Lost in Translation. That was kind of like the, here's this American businessman who's a big movie star in the movie, and if anyone should be self-conscious, he should, but he's just hanging out in a karaoke bar singing. But I think also people do love attention. People do love the fact that you can go to a karaoke bar and they want to sort of imitate that feeling of being on stage and being a rock star or a pop star or whatever. And that's you can get it for a very brief few minutes and not have to suffer any of the other side effects of being an aspiring rock star, some of which are great and some of which are not so great. So I think it's definitely a rush, and I think it's also a form of music appreciation too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm hoping to stall and give Beth a few minutes here to either get her technology or her courage together. So Beth,
I almost am there. I'm just looking for my my version. I found the song I want to do, but I'm trying to find the version.
Well, just whenever
make it easy.
Whenever you feel ready, just speak up, and Brian and I'll keep going. And also, let me give out our phone number again. If you've got a comment or question for Brian Raftery, author of Don't Stop Believin', How Karaoke Conquered the World and Changed My Life, or if, like Beth, you might be prepared to sing a little song for us, I'll just remind you the basic rule of thumb here is you'll be listening to whatever you need to listen to in your own ear, but I just don't want to hear the accompaniment come out over your phone and on the radio. That's just for legal reasons. So we'd love to hear you call in and sing.
Oh, glad you qualified that, because I wasn't sure how that was going to work.
Well, just play it enough so that you can hear it, but we won't. I don't want to constitute a performance, someone else's material.
Right, so that you don't get in trouble with the ASCAP people.
Right, as long as you can hear it and you can sing along to it, I think that'll be fine.
Okay.
Well, Brian, let me ask you, do you mind telling us how you got started singing karaoke? Because I think your initial approach to it was pretty much like mine. Like, there is no way I'm getting up in front of those people and singing.
Yeah, I mean, by the time I sort of really kind of got into a position where someone was about to put me in a karaoke bar stage, I was in my early 20s, and I'd already gone through the sort of rites of passage of wanting to be a musician and learning the very hard way that I was not. I mean, I was like, I was in a high school cover band, and I really wanted to be the singer, but I wound up being kind of like the mediocre guitarist who stands in the back because they kind of need just a fifth person to play. And, it became pretty obvious to me that I was never going to be a musician. And so one of my best friends from school, he went to Japan. He actually wound up going to Japan for a couple months while we were in school, and he came back just very, very obsessed with karaoke and kept telling me how much I would love it because, he and I used to just sort of drive around central Pennsylvania at times because we went to school at Penn State and just sing aloud in the cars because we were kind of goofballs, but we both really loved music. So one night we went out and I said, I'm not going to do this. I mean, this is ridiculous. I don't like getting in front of people. I'm not a good singer, etc. And, a couple of pictures and a couple of hours later, we wound up doing it, and we got up as a group, and there's sort of a Rashomon account of what we actually sang. We all have like 5 different memories of what we actually sang. But whatever it was, I mean, I stepped off the stage being like, wow, that was actually really fun, and I'm never going to do that again. I did it once, and that's it, and this was a fluke. And then I moved to New York, and we wound up going to these private karaoke rooms, which they have in New York they start in Japan, and we just kind of wound up going every weekend. We wound up inviting more people, and it just became like, for me, a little bit of getting that kind of kick of wanting to be a singer when I was growing up and being a musician. But at the same time, for me, it was also just kind of like a form of music appreciation. I mean, I would just find old random songs that I'd forgotten about and forgotten how much I loved, and then all of a sudden I just couldn't wait to sing them. So that's kind of what led me down this karaoke path, as it were. So, and then, it became more of a social thing after a couple of years, too. It was just all our friends, we would just wind up going to karaoke bars because they were more fun than dance clubs, and there were a lot of them, downtown. So it became a good way to hang out with people.
Sometimes people like to dance. They dance to the karaoke music, which is always really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, Brian. And Beth, too. Do either of you dance, or are you more likely to sing than dance?
I like to dance. Actually, one of the most fun things I ever did was I've done karaoke in Vegas, and there's a place called I just brain farted. Sorry, House of Blues, and they do rock karaoke. Have you ever done rock karaoke, Brian?
Is that with the live band?
Yes.
Yeah. They've had that in New York for about 10 years now. It's
oh my God.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Amazing.
There's actually a chapter in Brian's book.
Yeah, there's actually there's a punk metal karaoke band that's been playing in New York since 1999, and they're really great. They're really good musicians. They're all really good musicians and really fun guys. But that became a big part of sort of my first year or two in New York, was that I would go to this bar called Arlene's in the Lower East Side, and it's changed now. They've changed the band that's there. This band had some problems with the ownership after a while and got kicked and wound up switching venues. But it was amazing because you would go to this on these Monday nights, and they were only doing punk songs for a while, and then they were doing punk and metal, and they started doing arena rock. But it was just, I'd never seen a really sort of egalitarian kind of crowd at a New York bar until I went to these places. I mean, there were yuppies, there were punks, there were like bikers, there were sorority girls, everyone was sort of brought together by this idea that you could actually get up on stage with a live band, which to me was like, karaoke 2.0. It was the absolute, the logical next step in the evolution of karaoke. And that was really terrifying, but really, really fun. I mean, and just, I think one thing that always was sort of jarring about that is you get up on stage, and if you're not a professional lead singer of a punk or metal band, I don't think you're ready for how loud the instruments are going to be around you. So the first 5 seconds, you'd always just kind of like stumble and look around, like, what is going on here? But it was great fun, and I mean, I still get a chance to sing with those guys once in a while, and it's a great idea. I mean, it actually started in L.A. like in '98, '99 with these former punk band guys, and they picked it up in New York, these other guys, and they do a great job with it. So it's really fun. I mean, it's spread now to so many cities, and it makes sense that we've gone from having pre-recorded karaoke tracks to actually having live bands, because I think it gives you a little more of that thrill of being on stage.
Yeah, I like the stage thing. I tell people there's a little diva inside of me, several little divas. And so when I was there for my 50th birthday in January of this year, now almost a year ago, hard to believe, I got to pick a song I actually knew really well, and I did Gloria Gaynor's Survive.
Oh, wow.
And there was about 300 people, I think, 250, 300 people in the House of Blues, and
Whoa.
about 150 of them were out on the dance floor dancing.
Oh, that's
it was
fantastic.
Like really heady for me to see them, and they were out there going, "Yeah, sing it, girlfriend." I'm like, "Oh my God!" It was like it was amazing. Okay, so I have my song. It was really fun. I have my song ready. I don't know how it's going to work, but we're going to give it a whirl.
Okay.
Okay, let me hit my start button. I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm going to do Celine for you, and if it's too loud for you to hear, and you can hear the music, let me know. That way I can turn it down so you guys don't hear it.
We'll be fine. You go right ahead.
You can cut me off wherever you want, because it's a long song. Don't want to take up all your time, Brian.
Yeah, give us a verse or so, and then that'll be good.
Every night in my dreams, I see you, I feel you. That is how I know you. Go on. How's that?
Very nice. I mean, that's a song I've heard a lot of times at karaoke bars, and a lot of times not as good as that. So very nicely done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did that one in Vegas. It was really funny because I'm doing it in Vegas, and Celine's show is going on somewhere.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she may have been hovering around.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I actually know she was actually doing the show, but I actually went and saw her. I think that the year I did in Vegas, they sang that song. I think I actually went and saw her show. That was, I think, the first year that I went to Vegas.
I actually think that when she was doing that Vegas show, there were actually like 15 or 16 Celine Dions that were just sort of going around the city at that point. I don't think she's actually. I think she's like frozen. They froze her in like 1998 and just started cloning her, and they just sort of put her in this bubble and say, oh well, you know, she leads this very private life, but actually there's 30 of them at any given time. So who knows where the real Celine Dion is? But that sounded very nice. That was very good.
Thank you. Wow. That was a little sing snap behind me.
Well, Beth, I'm so grateful for you to break the ice here as our first singer, and hopefully some of our other listeners will call in. And
let's get them in there. I'm taking this time.
Well, Beth, it was delightful to have you on the call. I know, as I said, you got to the web chat even before I announced that the show was starting. So thank you very much for calling, and we appreciate your participation.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again, Beth.
Have a great night.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that clears up a phone line. If anyone would like to follow Beth, if you've got a little verse you'd like to sing, we don't want the whole song. Just, give us a little bit of what you do in a karaoke bar. We'd love to hear it. Or if you've got a question for Brian or comment, 646-595-3135. And again, only call in if we're live, because if you're not calling in while we're doing the show live, Brian is probably out in a bar somewhere singing, and I am not in a bar singing. You know what? We have another call.
Oh, great.
All right. Hi, do you have a question or comment for Brian? As soon as I turn on their mic, call us back. Get up the guts, call us right back.
That may have been one of the many Celines in Vegas who was calling. Who knows?
I think Beth was asking you about what you've sung, what you'd like to sing in karaoke bars. Now, I noticed in the book that you actually have two lists. You have a list of titles that you've always wanted to sing but couldn't, and then you have a list of these are let me see. These are tracks that you can always find,
right?
That at least you know all the words. Bobby Brown's On Our Own, Mike and the Mechanics, boy, there's an old one. All I Need Is a Miracle, Dan Hartman, I Can Dream About You. God, if I hear that song one more time. Elton John, I guess that's why they call it the blues. Looking Glass, Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, and Stevie Nicks, Stand Back. Are there songs that you just... you sang once or twice and you just would never go back to, that they just didn't work for you?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of songs that I think I sang a lot early on that I mean, one of the things about that list is that some of those songs, while they're not obscure, going back to Sister Christian, they weren't number one songs. They weren't like, Beat It. They weren't, they weren't smash hits, because the songs I really tend to go for are the ones that are kind of like these second tier hits. So I think one of the reasons why I sort of gravitate toward those is that when I started out, I would always sing these kind of big hit songs like, like Piano Man, which I was probably guilty of more in my early 20s than now, and stuff like Wanted Dead or Alive, or Invisible Touch by Genesis. And I think for me, I did karaoke so much that I got sort of sick of those songs in the same way that possibly Bon Jovi and Phil Collins get sick of them, where I was just like, I don't want to go out there again and sing, Wanted Dead or Alive or Living on a Prayer. I mean, please, haven't we moved past that? So those are the kind of songs that I will still sing them, and I like rediscovering them every couple of years. But there have been very few songs that I've found that I will do and really hate so much. I mean, I think every year myself or one of my friends maybe gets a little bit too much to drink and thinks that the Proclaimers' 500 Miles would be fun to sing for more than a minute and a half, and it's absolutely not. It's actually kind of annoying, and when you're the one singing it, it somehow becomes more annoying. It's some people do it very well. I am not one of them. And I think every once in a while it's kind of funny to sing "We Didn't Start the Fire" by Billy Joel, but most of the time it's just sort of actually you're probably annoying other people in the room. Though it's possible. Those are songs that I would do maybe on a yearly basis. I mean, "We Didn't Start the Fire" I actually sang a couple weeks ago, and that is really, really fun to sing. But at the same time, I now don't need to sing it for another maybe 2 or 3 years at this point. But I'll really try anything. There's very few songs that I really hate. And earlier I mentioned that I'm not really good at hip hop and rap songs. But that doesn't mean I don't still try once in a while. I mean, sometimes I do that more for a small circle of non-judgmental friends who realize that I'm going to sound pretty bad, but they realize that I really like Lil Wayne. I really like Public Enemy, and so if I'm with the right friends who appreciate those songs too and aren't going to completely make fun of me, I will maybe do a couple of old Public Enemy songs, which you can do now at karaoke, which is amazing to me.
What would be if you wanted to cut somebody down who was singing? Not that you would, of course. I'm sure you're very gracious, but what would be a really nasty to use an 80s term, a nasty snap at somebody who was, singing poorly in your judgment?
Gosh, I don't think I've ever actually, my best friend Mike and I are very brutally honest with one another, what we do is we'll actually turn the song off if we're trying to give a hint that you should probably stop singing it, because they have we go to these private room places a lot in New York, or we used to before they got really insanely expensive because they got so popular. But sometimes it would just be, he and Mike and I for 2 or 3 hours, and by the second hour it was just very, very, really very straightforward. If I was doing badly or the song was annoying him, he would just get up and turn it off, and I would do the same. and it was always understood. It was kind of like an honor among thieves sort of agreement where I really couldn't, I couldn't blame him, and neither could I. But I've never actually sort of booed someone or given the thumbs down. I mean, I've certainly endured a lot of mediocre karaoke, just not because people were bad singers, but because they were, kind of making fun of it or maybe doing something a little ridiculous. But I've never actually, I don't have any good karaoke put downs, which I try not to. One thing that I really, try to make sure people know is that I'm not a good singer. I'm not a really great judge of singers. I mostly sort of look at enthusiasm, and I think the sort of Simon Cowell culture can be a little too mean-spirited sometimes. I mean, I'm not out looking for talent or scouting for talent or trying to grade someone. So for the most part, I'm pretty lenient.
And what in the days you're married now, but in the previous days when you were dating and maybe you'd see somebody, what would be a good share with some of our listeners? What would be a good come on to meet some of the opposite sex in a karaoke bar?
Well, I think it varies from person to person. I think for me, since I'm not a good singer, I always would try to flirt a little bit with something that was slightly self-deprecating and a little goofy. I always thought that Brandy or A Fine Girl was a really good sort of like, hey, I'm singing, I'm kind of ridiculous, but actually I really do love this song, and maybe you like it too, sort of track. I think you can never go wrong with Benny and the Jets or Rocket Man by Elton John. I think they are sort of generally universally loved, and I think they're slow enough that you can kind of convey a certain maybe romantic overture, but at the same time they're not, really big, obvious love songs that are going to be kind of embarrassing if you get shot down. I mean, I think the most important thing is if you're going to flirt or attempt to flirt or even attempt to impress someone in a karaoke room, is that you should not pick a song like Freebird. You should not pick a song that has guitar solos or long patches where you are not going to be singing, because you will not know what to do on stage and you'll generally look ridiculous. And the other thing to do is to make sure you know at least most of the words, because that is always watching someone who does not know the words, either sort of stammer their way through it or get very frustrated. It's okay to fake your way through. You can just start making things up. That's fine. It's actually very charming in a way. But watching people get stranded without the lyrics and kind of getting frustrated and sort of, standing there shrugging and being like, why did I do this? I would dare say that's a turnoff. I would dare say that's not going to help you in the karaoke flirtation world.
I was just amazed to look up and see the time. We've got about maybe 7 or 8 minutes
oh,
left.
Wow.
Yeah, that went by very quickly, all things considered, right?
About the length of Freebird and Stairway to Heaven, 2 songs that you should... So imagine, if you're listening now, imagine that you were going to be on stage for the remaining amount of the show, and think to yourself, could I actually stand on stage to Freebird or Stairway to Heaven and sing the whole time? That is a good way of gauging the time of how long you should be on a karaoke stage.
Let me just say that if I walk in and somebody's singing Stairway to Heaven, I'm walking right out. I don't care who it is. It could be Robert Plant. Actually, probably even more so. I'm walking out with Robert Plant. But that's just me, folks. Let me give out the phone number one last time. I know the number of people in the chat room has increased while we've been talking, as often happens as we near the end of a show. Last chance, folks, if you want to call in, talk to Brian Raftery, author of Don't Stop Believin', How Karaoke Conquered the World and Changed My Life. If you'd like to sing us a little something, last chance. This is last call, okay? So get in on this. 646-595-3135. Speaking of songs that drive me crazy, you chose as the title of your book a Journey song that drives many people crazy because they've heard it so damn many times. What does that say about you, that you picked this for the title of your book?
Well, I think we were... look, Don't Stop Believin' is on that list of songs that, as much as I love, I really got sick of about 4 years ago. But I couldn't call it, Any Way You Want It or Love and Touch and Squeeze, and there were very few other Journey songs for me to choose from. Though, actually, my favorite Journey song, just for the record, is Lights, which I think is their most underrated song, and even though I am absolutely terrible at singing that, I always wind up singing that. But I think, it's sort of tied in, it ties in with a sort of a second message of the book, which is that, a lot of it is reported and kind of talking about the history and the cultural, but there's also a little bit of a... my sort of journey, as it were, from kind of like someone who was terrified of going on stage and using karaoke to sort of, sort of self-actualization process, which is, a little strange. But no, we needed a song title and for the title, and that seemed like the most logical step. But yeah, I would have gone with, Wheel in the Sky or something if I could have gotten away with it. I would have called it Sister Christian, but I think that would make no sense whatsoever. So.
I guess if you had gone with an Eagles song or a Don Henley song as opposed to this one, you'd probably been sued by now. Yeah,
or at least or at least I've gotten, I would have heard Don Henley frowning from 500 miles away from wherever he is.
There you go, taking another swing at him. I just was making a comment.
No, I know. Look, he could be a very nice guy. Just that this karaoke hatred that he is believed to have, I can't square with it. I don't quite understand it. But, if Prince, who's extremely serious about his songs, will license his songs for karaoke, why won't Don Henley? The guy wrote All She Wants to Do Is Dance, which is, a pop song about, U.S. foreign policy. He's got to have a sense of humor about himself somehow.
Okay, but if Prince can dress up the way he does and look himself in the mirror and still walk out the door, I assume he's got a sense of humor. So, I got to go with that.
He can do whatever he wants as far as I can concerned. That man he's beyond reproach, both for the singer and as a karaoke song provider. I have been very grateful to have the music of Prince come on at many points at karaoke bars. So, yeah.
One of the things that you talk about in the book is, you've traveled. We really, in some ways, we haven't talked about the book that much, and I don't mean to do you a disservice that way.
No.
But one of the things that you talk about in the book is that you've traveled around the world going to karaoke bars, and I'm kind of curious what you found to be the difference. I don't know if you've been to Seattle for karaoke, where Beth is, but what's the difference between, a karaoke bar in New York or a karaoke bar in Tokyo, where you've been, or I'm trying to think where the world karaoke championships are. Was that in the Philippines?
Well, they've had it once on a cruise ship from like Finland to Estonia, and then once in Thailand. So I've done it in Asia a couple of times, but I've been in Japan twice now. And the difference between Japan karaoke and American karaoke is really, Japan is the birthplace of karaoke, and going there is just, it's like, I imagine it's like a baseball fan going to Cooperstown or something for the first time. It is just, the karaoke there is plentiful. It's on almost, in Tokyo and Osaka, there's a karaoke bar almost on every corner. And, the private room karaoke is not really big in America yet. People like to sort of go on a stage and do the more public karaoke bar. But in Japan, for a lot of reasons, cultural and in terms of space, they have these private karaoke rooms, and it's phenomenal. I mean, it's run like a small scale amusement park. You get this microphone handed to you that's just been warm. It's warm because it's just been sterilized. There's a thing called Nomi Hodai, which translates somehow into please bring beer to my room every 20 minutes whenever I pick up the phone, because they have phones in the private rooms. And they just have the most amazing, they have songs, American and British pop songs that I have not seen in America or Europe, like really obscure Carpenter songs. They take it very seriously. And the karaoke bars there, the K-boxes as they're called, are always crowded. There's always young kids there. There's always old businessmen there. And, to me, it's just, I feel like if I were to go back to Japan at this point, I would just sort of, break my bank account just going to karaoke all the time, because it's so much fun to do there. And there's a lot of great things to do in Japan, but to be honest, by the third day, I always just wind up just going to the karaoke bars.
And I guess this is about all I have time left to ask you, but you also, I'm jumping around a little bit, but you also talk about the influence of karaoke on American Idol and American Idol on karaoke. Do you want to touch that for just a second?
They definitely, they kind of have this, symbiotic relationship. I think that the fact that in the late 90s we had, they started making at-home karaoke machines where young kids could sing without going to a bar certainly helped a lot of people who were very young at that point sort of train themselves to sing, which a lot of them wound up later auditioning for American Idol. At the same time, the success of American Idol has given a lot of people, a lot of amateurs, the confidence to sing. So, people in the karaoke industry are a little wary of American Idol. Because Simon Cowell kind of uses it as an insult. He uses the word karaoke as an insult. But they've both benefited from each other greatly. I don't think karaoke bars would be anywhere near as crowded as they are now if it were not for American Idol. And I don't think American Idol would have the crop of contestants it has every year if it weren't for karaoke. So it's interesting they both kind of ascended at the same time.
There are, of course, dozens of Idol editions around the world. Every country. Russia has one. Poland has one. Of course, It started in England. Does that show? I don't know if you can answer this. Does that show do better where there is a strong karaoke singing tradition?
I don't know. I would imagine that the format of that show now, which it started overseas, I think a lot of countries, a lot of cultures have this a deep love of singing and a love of communal singing, and I think it took off in Europe and it took off in parts of I think it took off in like Northern Europe and then parts of Asia. I'm not entirely sure, but those are very big singing cultures, and I'm not sure how much it's influenced how big karaoke is there, but those countries certainly were much more into karaoke before we were. So it makes sense that they would get Idol there before we would sort of warm to the idea. But I'm not entirely sure like how it's worked overseas. Whether the karaoke culture has kind of dictated the Idol culture or not.
Well, we are just completely out of time, and I want to tell everybody that you can find Brian Raftery's book, Don't Stop Believin', How Karaoke Conquered the World and Changed My Life, wherever you buy books. But if it's easier, you can also order it on Amazon.com or mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. Brian, I don't know how, but that was one of the fastest hours I think we've ever done on the show. I want to thank you for your patience.
No, it was great fun.
We really appreciate you coming in.
You got it. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Have a Happy New Year. Thank you, Beth, for coming in and singing. And,
that was great.
Everyone who hears this on the replay in the months to come, sorry you weren't here to sing with us, but be singing. Keep it up. Brian, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks again, Bob.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. And folks, for more great music-related interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my earlier conversations with people like Neil Diamond biographer David Wild, punk rock historian Legs McNeil, rock photographer Bob Gruen, actor-singer Billy Bob Thornton, and many, many more. Please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, casting a vote for Mr. Media, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, Pointer Online, Digital Journal, Podcast Pickle, Vox, Folio, Mediafly, Podfeed.net, Blueberry, Zencast, Odeo, or iTunes. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many locations. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman.com. That's ANDELMAN.com. You can also follow me now on Facebook or on Twitter, where the address is www.twitter.com/Andelman, Andelman. Well, we come to the end of another show, and I just want to thank you so much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it with us. Hope you had a good time, and hope you'll come back real soon. Bye, everybody.
Okay, before you go, I just want to remind you that Audible.com was our sponsor today, and you can get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial today by signing up at www.audible.com/trynow. TRYNOW. Again, a free audiobook with a 30-day trial today by signing up at www.audible.com/trynow. I don't know about you, but that Johnny Cash biography, as read by Chris Christopherson, I think I'm going to grab that one right now.